the big change in them comes when they see it something as someone else. So, for instance, I will be very nonchalant about sharing my measurements, right? Because I'm just like, who cares, right? I don't care what my measurements are. They're just my measurements. And we've had multiple people being like, I thought like I looked terrible and I could only ever look terrible. And I would look at pictures of Jenny Rushmore and be like, she looks amazing, but no wonder she looks amazing because she must be smaller than me. And then they would see my measurements and be like, what? No, I'm the same as, hold on a second.
Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Jonah from Teachable, and today we get the privilege and opportunity to talk to Jenny Rushmore about all things community, transformations that can be offered through community, and how Jenny is utilizing community to serve her students. Jenny, I like to let the creator introduce themselves and give some context. So for anyone who may not know you, can you let us know a little bit about yourself, your journey, and especially your path to working for yourself and being a creator?
Sure. So thank you for having me on. My name is Jenny Rushmore. I'm the person behind Cashmere. And we are a company that basically empowers women to feel great about themselves by sewing their own clothes in a custom size and fitting them really, really well. And the story of how I came to be, it probably isn't very surprising, right? I couldn't find clothes that fit me well. I really struggled in the stores. And over time, I've learned more things that now explain why. Like, for instance, 80% of women wear a different size at the bust, waist, and hip, but you can't walk into a store and get a size 18 bust, size 20 waist, and size 8 hip dress. It doesn't exist. And so, of course, many of us have terrible experiences. And on top of that, I'm plus size. And especially when I started Cashmere, there were very few available clothes for me. And again, what have I learned since? Well, the average American woman is plus size. 70% of us are. And also, the average bra size is over a double D, but almost everything's made for a B. So all of these things, made it very frustrating for me. So I decided to learn to sew my own clothes. And I immediately hit the same barrier, which is that the sewing patterns were the same. So I would either be like, I'm a size 14, I'd either be the top of the sewing chart, or I wouldn't even be in it. I wear an H-cup bra, I would never be able to find anything to fit me. And I just was like, I know I'm not the only one. I know we're actually in the majority of the market. So that was the origin. I started blogging, it became very popular. I decided to quit my job. And we started off just with sewing patterns. So initially we had plus size sewing patterns in a wide size range in cup sizes, became very popular. And then over the years, it's expanded and expanded. So now we have size 0 to size 32, cup sizes C to H. And then what I started to realize is that the really missing thing then was all about fit. And that's actually where we mostly work with Teachable. So even once you have a sewing pattern that's technically in your size, you only need to have like slightly longer distance between your shoulders and it won't fit you. Or your bum is bigger and your tummy is flatter and it doesn't fit you. And it's so frustrating for so many people because they can't quite work it out. So at Cashmere, we really started to focus on that. I wrote a best-selling book on this topic. And then we also started offering online classes and lots of online education to basically empower people to make totally custom fit clothes for themselves.
First off, just gotta say, I love what you do. A dear friend of mine sews all of her own clothes and her husband's clothes, and she continues to refuse taking commissions from me, which I totally understand, but her and her husband look so good all the time. And it is, I think we underestimate how good it feels to also wear actually well-fitting clothes. Her husband is a very confident person as well, and I think that plays into it. But so thank you. Very excited to chat with you, and especially interested today in like community and how that's playing a role. But just to start with your courses before community, how are you running your courses? Are you doing live events? Are you doing just all self-paced? Can you give us an idea of what exists as a resource for a student other than the community?
Sure. So at the very beginning, I would actually run in-person workshops. And there was lots of great things about that, right? You get to meet people, it's really cool, but it's very limited. You could maybe take 10 people and you have to charge quite a lot because you have to have the pace and whatever. And, we have like tens of thousands of customers and you can only reach 10. And we realized pretty quickly that this wasn't like a sustainable way to reach a lot of people. And it's also like very, very labor intensive. And so the idea of doing like online workshops, online versions of that, came up fairly early in the business. Like people would be interested in this. So we started doing like self-paced online workshops on Teachable. So you can sign up at any time. It's not a drip course, it's like all available, and depending on the course, some of them are progressive, so some of them are like sew a swimsuit with us and you have to kind of follow through the steps, and then others are more modular. So we have one on fitting and it's just like, okay, you might not need to watch the ones on this topic, you might need to watch them on others. And then we utilized Teachable's ability for people to leave comments and ask questions. And then that would then lead onto our back end team. And then we would like help people through customer service. So those are kind of evergreen products. And for a long time, that's all we had. We had like a variety of those. And we were also able to cross promote them with our products. So we have a jeans pattern, then you can buy a class on how to make the jeans. And so some of them were more focused on like technical sewing. Like if you've never made a pair of jeans before, it seems intimidating. It's actually quite easy, but I take you through it. And I, as a person, like I find it very easy to just like chat and share thoughts and like do that. So it's sort of a very natural fit for us as well. It's actually much easier for us to record a course than it would be to like make a written document that communicates the same things in the same way. Partly because I just find it easy to do it, I guess. So that historically has been what we've done. But this year, we actually launched our very first, I don't even know what the words are that you guys would use to do it, but our very first course that was it was a limited time that you could enroll in it. And it's a 9-week course and you need to follow through in the 9 weeks. So it's called Sloper School. Now, this is kind of technical if you're not into sewing your clothes, but basically the underlying idea of a sloper is you make a very close fitting dress that has nothing interesting about it. It just has a high neck, long sleeves, straight skirt, very, very boring, out of muslin, and you fit it to yourself really, really, really well. So you spend a lot of time making it it's almost like making a mannequin of yourself, right? Like, so you're making it really perfectly fit you. And then once you have it, you can do two things with it. The one is you can turn it into any other garment. So through pattern hacking is what we tend to call it. You can take this pieces that you now know fit you 100%, and you can put a different neckline on. You can make the sleeves different. You can change the length of the skirt. And every time you know it will fit you already. So instead of having to go through the fitting process every time you start a new pattern, which is very laborious, you just can do it. The other thing you can do with the sloper is when you make a new pattern, you can take the piece. So you can be like, here's the front piece. You can take your sloper piece. And there's a method of very quickly evaluating, will it fit me or not? And making changes. Again, it saves lots and lots of time. So we knew that this concept was very appealing to a lot of people, but it's also quite technical and requires a lot of feedback. So it isn't the kind of thing, it's the kind of thing that's usually an in-person class. You can't do self-paced very easily. So then we were like, maybe this is the first time we'll actually do something with a much higher level of involvement. It will cost more money. And we will actually lead people through the process. And that Sloper School is then also where we started using the Teachable community side of things.
Okay, so I'm fascinated by the technical thing. So a quick question.
Yeah,
So
sure.
with this, so by the end of the Sloper thing, you have a pattern that's custom fit for
Mhm.
you. That's cool. I want to do that. Uh,
Well, it's the kind of thing you could do, like you can theoretically do it with any type of garment. So for instance, like it does depend a bit on like what you struggle with. But say you're a man and like the shoulders never fit on things. What you would do in that case is like maybe you would make a button down shirt, like a very, very simple one with nothing interesting about it. And you'd make it fit you perfectly. And you'd be like, okay, this is my shirt sloper. Now I could make different collars off it. I could put different pockets on it. I could put different things on it, but I know that it will always fit me. It's sort of like an underlying blueprint, right? It's like a template. It's like, this is a template, a simple template that fits my body. And then you can go from there. But the thing that's just really tricky is like, for me, right now, if I make a new pattern, I have to evaluate it from scratch, not one of mine, they're fine, but someone else's pattern. And it's like, okay, I'm going to have to change the bust and the shoulders and this. And then you have to go through rounds. You make test garments and rounds. But if I have a sloper, instead, I could just be like, you know what? In 5 minutes, I could change these pattern pieces to be like that one. And I don't even have to test the fit once. I know it fits me. So it's a very nice approach to fitting. It's a different approach than we've taught in the past, but it's a very compelling one and one that many people are interested in.
That's so cool. And so then just structurally, as far the community was the thing to support this kind of higher engagement and more involved and higher ticket item like
I mean,
course.
it's even sort of more profound than that, to be honest. So, as I said, it's not that hard, but it's not easy. A lot of people find it challenging, and understandably, a lot of people who signed up are people who have found it challenging in the past, who have tried and not managed to do it. So part of the kind of promise of Sloper School was always that you will get personal feedback from me and the team. So then the question is, well, through what forum are we going to do that? Through what process? And also, we knew that it would be really beneficial if people could see each other's. So instead of just like, email us and we show you, you can learn so much from seeing how I'm advising other people and what they're doing, and then have a sense of camaraderie. And the sewing world's really interesting. Like, there's a lot of online communities in sewing. So it's huge in Instagram, used to be blogs, it's more Instagram now. And sewing is a very isolated hobby for most people. So it's something you do in your house. A lot of people don't know anyone else who sews. It's very common to not know anyone else who sews, but you get really, really into it and you want to connect with people and talk. And we already knew from other things that we've done as Cashmere, like how powerful that is. And especially in our area, which is sort of like body positive and like empowering people to be like, there's nothing, the sort of little tagline I have is that I learned that I didn't have to change my body to fit clothes. I could change my clothes to fit my body. And so for a lot of people, it's very liberating. It's like, instead of focusing on my body's wrong, it's like, no, just make clothes that fit your body. Boom, much better, right? So it's a very like emotional topic, and one that many people want to engage in, but they don't know anyone. So we knew that in Sloper School, there'd also be this opportunity. We have almost 3,000 people in it, which is a lot, all around the world. And, all times of the day and night, people are posting, they're commiserating with each other, they're like congratulating each other, they're learning from each other. And the teachable community aspect actually just came at the perfect time, almost to the point that I'm like, oh my goodness, what would have happened if you hadn't? We knew we didn't want to do it through Facebook for a whole number of reasons, including that a lot of people don't want to use Facebook anymore, which is legitimate. So we knew we wanted to do it ourselves. We were actually planning on doing it through the comments, and it would have been the biggest disaster. And I'm so glad. Like, we would have been a week or two in and had to find an external forum. But what we're trying to do is limit the number of places people have to log in. And I don't want to teach people how to use Discord and so on and so forth. And literally, I can't even remember now, 1 week or something before we launched, we suddenly got this like beta teachable communities. And I was like, hold the front door. I think, what? And I looked at it and I was like, and then I thought, well, it's only a beta. Is it going to be any good? But actually, it was great. And during the last 8 weeks we've been running this course, it has improved. Like, we see like features just appearing, which is really good. And it's actually been like extremely functional. Like, it has become extremely active. I'm on there for literally hours every day helping people. And people on the whole have found it very easy to use. And what we were hoping for has happened, which is you can see people's progress as they're going through the course. People are giving each other advice. People are watching other people's and learning from it. There's a real sense of camaraderie there. Actually, so much so, we don't / can't keep it open forever after the course because it's just too much for us. So we will have to stop it a few weeks after the course ends, and people are already sad about that. So it's been very popular.
Yeah, well, I love you're such a great example of this because your clothes are so tied to so many parts of yourself. So it sounds like you were very thoughtful about why you were building the community and the many elements that would come in, both emotional, technical, all of that. Have you been either like in those areas especially surprised, or have there been new ways that people are interacting in that community that you were surprised by, or like nuggets you're keeping for the
Yeah.
future?
I mean, there has been a huge amount of learning for us. So this is the first year that we launched Sloper School, and it wasn't really something we could beta test. I mean, maybe we could have, but it would have been very, very hard. Now that said, we have so much experience now with fitting people that we felt very confident we could give people a very good experience. But it is the first time we're doing it, and we have learned so much. And I'd say mostly through the forum, actually through the community, because that's where people are just chatting all the time. And, you're kind of eavesdropping in a sense, right, of what people are saying. Um, and we've learned so much that, we're planning the second wave of it. And already there are tons of changes that we're going to make. And it's sort of like nonstop customer research, right? It's like we are seeing in real time constantly, what do people not really understand? What are lots of people asking for clarification on? What are the problems that we didn't anticipate people would have in their slopers that it turns out they have? We did tons of work beforehand to kind of think through, but at the end of the day, like, we didn't know. And so we've actually, even as we've been going week by week, we have been adding things in, like, as we go, and being like, you know what, let's just write up a quick tutorial on that, because so many people are asking that question in the forum. But if we relied on people to email us, a lot of them wouldn't bother, probably. They wouldn't be like, oh, I was thinking about this. And so we've actually learned so much that there are actually tangible changes that we're going to make the next time we run it. So, for instance, I knew conceptually that making the right size at the beginning, or sizes really, because you actually make different sizes, that is like the bedrock of it all. Like, we knew that was important, but what we've realized is it's, well, first of all, even more important than we realized, because sometimes we're getting people engaging in week 8 who made a mistake in week 1, but they didn't post, so we didn't see it, so we couldn't help them. But also that we need to allocate more time to it. Like, when we're looking at our 9 weeks, we're actually going to reorganize how we do it based on what we saw in the forum and the community, because it's like, oh, our customer needs, it's what we thought, but it's even more skewed than we imagined. And now we have all of these ideas. We're like, oh, hold on. Here are ways that, and there's multiple benefits. So here are ways that we could make it an easier experience for our customers, because a lot of them find it difficult. And we're like, okay, there's an easier way to say this. Second of all, add more content that it turns out was missing, or it turns out we had to send them to other people for, and we would like to keep them like in Cashmere if we can. And then third of all, help our customer service. Because this is a huge one. We knew a lot of people would sign up. We did not know 3,000 people would sign up. That's a lot of people. Admittedly, a lot of those people were able to access it because we have a monthly membership program called Cashmere Club, which it's a whole other thing where you get monthly patterns and you get masterclasses. We offered it as a free thing and an incentive to sign up there. So a lot of the 3,000 didn't pay explicitly for this course. They paid for the club and they got it. And not all 3,000 people are participating, but a very significant number are. And so on our end, it's been, a major time commitment for me and my team. Now, this is fine. It's a huge project. We want to help people. We're happy to do it. But we do want to figure out next time, how could we reduce the amount of time it takes for us? Now, we don't want to do that by delivering less good program for people. But what we do want to do is like, wow, if we had to help people out on that topic 400 times, we obviously didn't do a good enough job up front in explaining it, or we should have done more, or we should have introduced this is one of the things we're now thinking about. We should have introduced a checkpoint. So we should have been like, do these first 2 things, then submit it to us. And don't move forward until you've submitted it. Because we now know that 30% of people are doing it incorrectly at that stage. And if you do it incorrectly at the beginning, like you're building a house, you did the foundation wrong. When you come to me that your roof is half off, I'm going to be like, oh, you made a problem at the beginning. And it's frustrating, obviously, to have to go back to the beginning. So we're like, okay. So it's like we've kind of been observing like hundreds and hundreds of customer journeys through this process. As a side point, I've also been kind of joking to my team, but I feel like it's literally been refining my skills. So I'm getting better at helping people. I'm getting better at understanding the nuances. I'm getting better at different ways of explaining things. And because we're a company that focuses so much on this topic of fit, we're actually learning a lot for other parts of what we do. You know, like whether it's the books that I write or how we structure our website. There's actually just it's like this nonstop focus group, right?
First off, you answered like 8 of my questions in one answer. um, I also like we don't use that language. I appreciate it so much. We know community is a two-way street, but specifically talking about it as like this user research for your business. Um, and it's it's very I appreciate exactly the way you've talked about it. And maybe there's an advantage, especially to having this thing where it's not an evergreen community, but you try it with a very specific product and go from there. Um, and especially just what you're learning about how you teach and being able to
Mhm.
get that real time feedback. Your community is especially engaged. I know, let me, a pain point for a lot of creators is they start a community. Often it's with a self-paced course or something like that. It can be just very difficult to get people engaged. Um, I think you probably had an easier time that it is this program, this ongoing like program. But with the course or with your live events, are there specific tactics you were using, whether through email or within the course, to make sure people are going into the
Mhm.
community and like are aware of the value that's there?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, the personal feedback is almost like the main reason that a lot of people are signing up. We do also offer we have a feedback form and an email address as well, so there are other places people off do contact us. So I'd say it's the main one. The big thing though is just like making people understand where it is, honestly. So we have because we haven't used it before, well, it didn't exist before. Also, our Cashmere Club, which is on Shopify, has a different forum in a different place with a different login. So first of all, that is why it would be very nice if Teachable and Shopify were fully integrated. um, so we're having to educate people like this is where it is. It's in a different place. You need to log in here. um, but then what we've done is there's like all of these videos, pre-recorded videos each week. So in it, I'll be like, hey, so now it's time to make up your muslin, which is your trial garment, and then go and post it on the community and post it this week and so on. There are then links in the emails. And then what we also do is halfway at the beginning of the week, we launch the new content. Middle of the week, we send like a kind of update community email. And in that, we do a couple of things. One is that we have a little like feature of like, I can't even remember what we call it, like Jenny says, basically, right? And it's something that came up on the forum, and it's something we wouldn't necessarily have anticipated. So I'm just making this up. Like Jenny says, if you need a sleeve size that's more than 3 sizes bigger than your bodice, a really great way to do it is this. And then we pick out interesting threads and we say, going on right now in the community. And so we'll say, like, Priscilla wants to know, does anyone else have trouble taking half measurements? Like, Jenny helped Amy figure out the size of the adjustment she needed to make. And so it's sort of like little, like, tidbits that are kind of intriguing that might be on topics people are interested in and pull them over. We have also actually changed the way that we structured the community from the beginning. So we didn't know how many people would be joining. We didn't know how they would be using it or how popular it was. And what we learned very quickly is we didn't want unending threads because it's way too hard. So at the beginning, that's what we did. We'd be like, hey guys, we're talking about shoulder fitting. Post here. And that was terrible because you could not track who have you answered, who you haven't. And then and this isn't ideal actually, the way it would be is you would see all of their things and then you would see all of our answers underneath. And then you'd be like, who did she just answer? It was very, very hard to track because so many people were commenting on one thread. And there would be like, it would say 2 replies at the bottom, but sometimes I would have like 70 things to answer. I would answer them and then it would put me all the way back to the top. And I'm like, oh my goodness, now I have to scroll through, try and remember who I've already answered. like, am I going back to 62 now? So that was very tricky. So we realized this is not going to work. So we closed those threads and said, we're not doing this anymore. And we started saying, you have to create your own. So you have to like make a new topic and say, hi, can give me feedback on this. And don't, you can feedback on other people's comments, but don't be like, oh, here's mine. What do you think? The other thing we realized is that sometimes I would have a brainwave and be like, oh, lots of people are having problems on this issue. I want to add some content, but it would get lost because people aren't reading every single post that's up there. They can't because there's too many. It got lost. So then we were like, you know what? We're going to make a Jenny's tip new section category, but it's locked. So people can't comment on it. It's basically just content that's going out. And then when another person needs the same thing, like is asking the same question, I'd be like, hey, check out Jenny's top tips. And then it would be, theoretically, it could have been a lesson in the curriculum, but it was a way for me to kind of more informally do it. And so there's even things in there like a pep talk, because occasionally we'll get people saying, this is so hard, I'm really struggling, I don't think I'm ever going to manage, or I can't keep up. So one of them is just a pep talk. It's like, if you think you're falling behind, look, it doesn't matter, like explaining how it works, explaining how it will help you. We are actually considering next time we run it, actually changing it all up again, just because it is so hard to keep track of individual people. We are considering, we haven't totally decided yet, to move to a new format that doesn't really have categories, where people create basically their own category. So it'd be like Jenny's muslin, and through the 9 weeks, you just keep in the same thread. And because we're also asking people constantly to repeat the same information, please give us your measurements, please give us your size. And instead, you create your Jenny topic. In the first one, I give you all the information you're ever going to need from me. And then I put week 1, here's my pictures, I give you feedback. Week 2, feedback. And then I can scroll and see the progress. And they don't have to constantly give the same information. And I don't constantly have to ask. And we think that it will be a better experience for the customer related to their own muslin. It will be a much better customer experience for us on the back end. The thing that will be lost a little bit is the interaction between the people. So what we're planning on doing is like both. So we're going to have kind of like community areas, which is like we can chat, but this is not for feedback on your muslin. But if you want to chat generally, or you want to chat conceptually about something, like how do you know if this, then we'll have these areas. You can chat there. But if you want, like, do I need to move my shoulder seam in by 1/2 inch? You're going to put that in your one. And we think it's going to be a better experience overall.
Very cool. I love your, well, and this is something not just us, like the creator space is talking about a lot, and creator economy about communities is and you're engineering very clever ways to make it more custom and helpful like this, almost like a social media platform, but for this like-minded group of
Mhm.
people, a closed community like that. Um, with something like you do, where it can be very personal as well and requires vulnerability to share or feel like you're in a trusted community. Do you think you could do this on Facebook or any other platform like this? Or does the
Yeah.
fact that it's not a social platform, whether it's even just people wondering what data is being tracked, do you think that opens more doors for people?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. I mean, we have very active Facebook groups, and they are private. We approve people in, we chuck people out very easily. But there are definitely, I think there's both like conceptual things, like some people just disapprove of it, full stop, or they don't want to participate on principle. But then there are sometimes like just very real, tangible issues that come up when you have so many people. And, if there's like thousands and thousands and thousands of people in a community, like you only need a few bad actors. And we definitely find it sometimes like they're not in the spirit of the thing. So what I mean by that is, for instance, we have a very strong policy everywhere we have community that you can't criticize your body. And we mean that actually like really quite extreme. So what I mean is, first of all, you can't be like, oh, I feel so fat, I hate myself, whatever. No. And we say, first of all, it's not very healthy. But second of all, there's lots of people on this group who are bigger than you. It's kind of insulting, right? Like It's not kind. Like there's always going to be someone who's more whatever it is that you're upset about, right? Like someone who's shorter or has bigger boobs or whatever. Like, so first of all, we don't want it because it's not just unkind to you, it's unkind to other people. But the second thing is that our philosophy is that it's the clothes that are the problem, not your body, right? So your arm isn't too big, the sleeve is too small. And I talk about this quite a lot. And it seems like such a small thing, but it really helps you. Like, we're not fixing your arm. There's nothing. What size is an arm meant to be? There is no size an arm is meant to be. Your arm is just your arm. But the t shirt might not fit you. And we can help you fix that very easily, right? Nothing wrong with your arm. So we really enforce this, which kind of creates this very, like, for want of a better word, like safe space for people to feel like literally safe, right? And they can talk about it. But it's much harder to monitor on social media networks because there's just more going on. And I think there's more like the opposite of goodwill, whatever they like, people winding people up. So we do a fairly good job there, but we know that there are limitations. And also, like, people will be disinclined sometimes to post pictures in their underwear or pictures where something doesn't fit them well. They don't want to be criticized. Whereas what we find in the Teachable community and also on the one that we have on Shopify is people know everyone here is fine. Like, it's very rare that we have, I mean, not even rare, we've never had anyone trolling. And if there's ever like not great comments, it's usually like a mistake or someone's misunderstood something, or we just step in and say, like, we delete it and we contact them and we say, by the way, don't make comments about people's bodies. You can make a comment about the dress, but you were kind of making a comment about a body there, so please don't do it. And it's fine. And I think, so yes, I think that these like private communities for the topics that we're on, which touch into bodies, but also evaluation of them, right? You can't not mention bodies when you're doing fitting. You have to talk about them. But we want to be able to like sort of like help keep the conversation positive, and just like it's just you're just talking about shapes. The analogy I make is it's just like how much flour is in a cake. It's not a good amount, it's not a bad amount, it's just the amount you need. What size is your waist? It doesn't matter. There's no good waist size, there's no bad waist size. You just need to know it so you can make a dress in the right size, right? So we're trying to really like help people get into that mindset, but also kind of enforce it from our side and like police it a little bit, like so if people really go off, we're like, no, moving it back. And that's much easier in private communities.
Jenny, you're making me choke up a little because it's very difficult to be so good at what you're doing. I just have a lot of friends who have struggled a lot with those things. I have to ask, like, what is it like, and what are the impacts that because you set very strict guidelines for no, you're not talking about body, but it's rare to be in a space where those guidelines exist.
Mm-hmm.
What is the impact you see that have on your students? And also, as someone who fosters that community, what is that like for yourself? And how has that affected your life?
Yeah, I mean, it's affected my life very profoundly. I did not feel positive about what I looked like for a very, very long time. And this like switch of like, it's not the clothes, it's you. Like, or rather, sorry, the other way around. It's not you, it's the clothes, right? And I've since heard someone else talk about clothes hurting her feelings. It's like you go to a mall, you try things on, and you feel bad about yourselves. Like the clothes hurt your feelings, right? Or like the experience. Like for me, it's crazy, right? I'm a size 14. I can't fit in most of the clothes in the mall. I'm less than the average American woman. I can't fit in the mall. What does that tell me? Like it's a hard one to fix. Like you're so abnormal that you don't fit in clothes in a mall. And first of all, there are people much, much bigger than me, obviously, who it's even worse. Like I have a lot of privilege, size 14 person. I fit in every chair, everything like that. But again, like to try and internally feel like, oh, it's not my fault. Like it's this whole industry. That's quite a challenging thing to do. But what's amazing once you make your own clothes and you know how to fit them, I always say this, I never try any clothes on that don't fit me, ever anymore. Never. Everything I put on fits me. And I look great because when you make clothes that fit you, you look much better, right? And they're exactly what I want. They're the right neckline, they're the fabric I want, and so on and so forth. Whereas, especially in plus size clothing, the things people think we want to wear are crazy, right? I'm just like, no, if I lost 50 pounds, I'd want to wear the same style of clothes. That's my taste. It's not my size that's dictating what I want to wear, right? Like, I'm here in some horizontal stripes. I don't care about the rules. So for me, it's been a huge, huge change. I did have this aha moment at one point when a Scottish newspaper, unbeknownst to me, I'm from Scotland originally, published a picture about Scottish influencers, which is funny because I don't think of myself as an influencer, but fine. And they took a photo from my blog of me in a swimsuit, and I was this big. It was like on the page, like physically this big. And I was like, oh yeah, look at that. It's like such a nice picture. Like, oh, I was in Mexico, and that's a good suit. And a few days later, I was like, if this had happened 10 years ago, I would be in a puddle on the floor. I would have been devastated for a picture of me in a swimsuit to be in a newspaper. I would have looked at that and gone, look at that, look at that, look at that. And then I realized, like, wow, this is profound. It didn't even cross my mind. Like, all I saw is that I look happy and I have a nice suit and I made it really nicely. And isn't it a nicely composed photo? It didn't even cross my mind to criticize my body. And I'm like, well, that's a change, because that is not what like 20-year-old, 25-year-old, 15-year-old Jenny would have ever thought. And definitely by far the most rewarding part of running Cashmere has been that, because I have been able to help bring other people to that stage. And a lot of historically, a lot of the sewing stuff was all about like how to make yourself smaller, make yourself more hourglass. And I'm just like, do whatever do whatever you want. Like, I can help advise you on how to achieve some of these things if that's what you want. But who cares? Like, in some ways, you just have like a bigger canvas for like cooler fabric, you know? Like, find a really cool fabric, like, yay, you can look even more cool. And we get emails all the time that are very emotional. Like, the number of times I've like been welling up. Because as you say, like, the interesting thing is you can think of things like clothes as like very superficial, right? Like silly things women are interested in. But your experience of the world is linked to how you present yourself to the world. Like, what people see affects how they feel about you. And if the only clothes you can wear are what's from a store and it doesn't fit you very well, or it's not your style at all, there's this massive incongruency between who you are and how you're projecting yourself in the world. It's very hard to look professional in a workplace if you're plus size and you're relying on the stores. What if you're a bit quirky? Where on earth are you going to find that stuff? What if you want to wear like higher end fibers and don't want to wear synthetics? You can't get that stuff. And so and then that leads to being more confident, and then leading more to being more confident. It's, a huge thing. So we've literally had people email us and say it improved their marriage, which kind of blows my mind. I never thought people were telling me that. It improved their marriage, that they've quit their job and started a new job, that so many people have commented on how they seem different. And one of the things I always find particularly touching is we sometimes get emails from much, much older people. So we get emails from people in their 70s and 80s. And they will say, I have been sewing since I was 12. And when I was 12, I fit standard stuff. When I was 18, I fit standard stuff. But over the years, I had kids and la, 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 la. And I stopped. And I just felt terrible about myself. And I've just been like sewing for my grandkids, or I've been sewing quilts. And and also there was a lot historically of sewing teachers chastising people, very common. I've heard so many people say, I went to a sewing class and I was chastised, or that they were just like, oh, it's so difficult. Like, God, I'm going to have to really figure it out with you. And I've had experience of many people crying in in-person ones, because they're like, people say, I thought I was impossible to dress. Like, I thought it wasn't possible. And my joke I always say is like, we're making some jeans. I'm like, I could literally make these jeans fit a mouse or a blue whale, because it's just fabric going around an object. It's not possible. You could have 3 arms and I could fit this dress to you. Like, that isn't a real thing. Like, that's not a truth that you might have an impossible body to dress. Like, of course I can. But for many people, that's like their world is shifted on its axis, because they had such a profound belief that they were impossible. And then all of a sudden it's like, and that's when we then get these like very emotional emails and stuff. So, Sloper School is all part of that. We've had many people in the community already say, like, I've had so many revelations and so many understanding, so many like points of like sudden understanding, where someone will suddenly be like, I had no idea that my right shoulder was 2 inches lower than my left shoulder. That explains why every single X thing has never fit me, and now I know how to fix it. So yeah, it's very sorry. I can ramble about this for a long time, but it's by far the best fit of the business.
So how do you because I've talked to a lot of creators, specifically like Christo or Dara Denny or people Teachable creators that have talked about this, but that at first it can take a minute or even before you have those relationships and see the transformation people have with what you have to offer to reconcile the like making your money off of this kind of work. Um, I think it's Christo who was saying they looks at his income of as a measure of his impact because he doesn't have people saying like that wasn't worth the money. They happily give it because of the
Mhm.
value.
Yeah.
Do you have your own philosophy or way around that? Has it ever felt uncomfortable or it
Not really.
yeah.
So I think, first of all, I come from a family. My parents are entrepreneurs. My brother's a very successful entrepreneur. So I always knew I wanted to do that. And then I worked in corporate world for 15 years. And I worked a lot on like household products. And it's kind of interesting, or like household and beauty. And you might be like literally, like I worked on Tampax, right? Like very prosaic thing. And you might think like, how could you possibly feel good about Tampax? But then you go to customer groups, and you're like, this massively changes people's lives, right?
Yeah.
Like, imagine if you didn't have it. What happens when they don't work well? It's an absolute effing disaster. And so, actually, there's a real meaning to this, and like it makes sense that this is a thing you would work on. And so, I think I sort of came in with that perspective. And what we've learned over time is people just want more, 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 more. Actually, like we have very high satisfaction rates. We have like practically zero returns on our business, like effectively zero returns. People just want more things from us, and they're very, very happy about it. People will joke like, "Take my money now" when we launch new things. So I don't. First of all, like I don't have a strong sense that like in any way we're overpriced. I mean, I think arguably we're underpriced, but I don't think we're overpriced. We have very high satisfaction rate from people, and also we do think about the framing, right? So for instance, with Sloper School, yes, if you pay for it out of pocket, I can't remember what we did now, $175, which by the way, if you did an in-person course, it would be
That's
thousands of dollars.
yeah.
So it's actually kind of low. And I do think in the craft industry, we tend to like put things at a lower price than we could. But the point I make is it's not $175 to like make one dress. It's first of all $175 to like learn how to fit yourself, which is huge. A lot of people never learn that in decades. And second of all, it's the basis for like all your clothes from now and forever. So I have no qualms about selling that for $175 because it's actually worth like a huge amount of money. And yeah, if anything, I honestly think we're underpriced.
Yeah. Very cool. Jenny, thank you so much for talking with me today. For everyone watching, thank you for being here. Let us know in the comments if you knew Jenny, if you learned something. If you didn't know Jenny, we'll have all of the links to her school and website and all of that below. You are literally the reason we're here and the reason I love doing my work. So it was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for doing what you're doing. And anything you want to impart to creators of any size, new, starting out as they go out?
Thank you so much for having me on, Jonah. This has been very fun. I ramble a lot, so thank you for listening to my ramble.
Good rambling.
No, I'm like a massive proponent of online courses. Honestly, like I've been trying to persuade my physical therapist to do them. I just think that they're so great on so many levels. You can reach so many people. They're very efficient. Okay, maybe not if you're giving personal feedback to everyone, but they're very efficient in terms of you record them once and then they're there. And yeah, I just think they're a very, very natural extension for many people of the products that they have. Now, in my case, what we do is so labor intensive on the part of the customer, even more so. Like maybe if you're selling watches, like people don't care so much. But for us, where there's an element of our customers using the product that we sell, like it's almost like a no-brainer. And it has not Sloper School, but everything else is truly passive income. We do nothing. and they just continue bringing income in. So as part of a kind of diversified revenue stream for a small business, it's been really, really helpful. And yeah, it's been great having it on Teachable.
Thank you, Jenny. It's such a pleasure to have you here. Everyone, thank you for watching, and we'll see you soon.